So Bethesda is teasing even more Starfield. It's another one of those bite-sized constellation logs hosted by the design director, and I would actually argue this is perhaps the best one they've released thus far because it really gets into the setting of the game, something we really haven't known much about outside of space or just the rough location of the solar system based off some of the locations mentioned. It starts off by describing how Starfield is going to take place in our own solar system, that being the Milky Way, and specifically it's going to be in the settled systems, which is 50 light years away from Earth. It takes place in the year 2330, so about 300 years in the future, and a bit of lore they establish is just 20 years before the events of Starfield as we experience them, there was a large war going on. Two of the largest factions in general, the Free Star Collective as well as the United Colonies, engaged in something known as the Colony War. But now they're at peace, although it's a bit of an uneasy peace between the two. Overall, the settled systems are still somewhat dangerous, with human threats lurking. Some of the examples they give of human threats are these things called ecliptic mercenaries that have this awesome looking new armor, pirates of the Crimson Fleet, which we've heard about and actually seen the armor of in the past, and even potentially just got some leaked renders of their armor, as well as violent spacers, which kind of just seem like those generic Raider-esque enemies that are in space. And although they don't actually show anything around this faction, they describe a group of fanatical religious zealots known as House Faru. In Starfield, we are going to be a part of Constellation, who we just started working for, and the overall goal of Constellation is going to be to uncover the mysteries of the galaxy, and how we'll be traveling around to its deepest reaches in order to do that. And with that last quote in particular, it really seems to align with some of the other things we've heard about Starfield, how Starfield is a Han Solo simulator. Han Solo was a smuggler, a rebel, and I imagine that quote is a representation of the freedom we'll have in Starfield. We'll be going around the galaxy and potentially to some of the fringe parts of the galaxy. We are clearly working for this larger company or organization with Constellation, but it definitely seems like we're going to have a lot of personal autonomy with where we're going and when we're going there. And even further, when they say the goal of Constellation is to uncover the mysteries of the galaxy, this is also one of the big things we've heard about Starfield in general, how it's going to be focusing on the search for life's greatest mystery. And we've even seen this structure represented numerous times, and it seems like this is one of the key components, uncovering what this is, what it's used for, what it means. So with Constellation's overall goal being to uncover mysteries, and one of the big things in Starfield to be uncovering life's greatest mystery, you have to imagine those two are gonna really interconnect. Maybe we're just going on some quests and kind of stumble upon something much larger. Although we still don't exactly know what life's greatest mystery is in this context. A lot of people have speculated it's the origins of intelligent life, or even just where we've come from. That could easily tie in with some of those fanatical religious zealots that were mentioned. Perhaps some of the people you encounter during your travels in Starfield are going to have a strong opinion onto the answer to that question, even if it's not concretely decided yet. Or perhaps it's even something a bit more specific, like, are we alone in the universe? The search for other intelligent life in the universe. One of the quotes during the video that was mentioned was around human threats, and this was kind of emphasized. So some people have wondered, does this mean that aliens won't necessarily be a huge component, or perhaps even that is one of the things that we'll be discovering and won't necessarily be established already? From some of the past concept art, we've seen some kind of alien creatures, but there's been a lot of speculation that what if one of the big things that happens in Starfield is the discovery of intelligent alien life somewhere, a different species of creatures, not just some kind of monster that wants to eat our face off. Either way, it seems like on this quest across the settled systems, we will encounter a variety of mysteries and different takes on the answers to those mysteries. As we've heard Todd Howard describe, we have some big questions in the game, the kind that people have asked when they look to the sky, you know? What's out there? Why are we here? How do we get here? And we get into science, we get into religion. I really enjoy thinking about those big questions. I see them in other forms of entertainment, and I think we have a unique way of presenting it with a game like this, where maybe we don't have all the answers, but I think it's good to get people thinking. We also hear about this previous war between the United Colonies as well as the Free Star Collective, and we know that both of these guys are having issues with the Crimson Fleet pirates. And based off this coming up numerous times now, these three names in tandem, it seems like this might be a big part of the world. On the Crimson Fleet, we've heard in the past how, also be advised that Crimson Fleet is not a single organized entity or faction, rather it is a loose confederation of individual captains, all organized under the same banner. Shown here is the symbol or Jolly Roger they've adopted. Anyone displaying that symbol will assume to be associated with the Crimson Fleet and can be terminated at will. I think this is the symbol. It came off one of those leaked renders. Not really sure if those renders are legit, but if they are, this is the symbol. But then further, how Pirates of the Crimson and fleet have extended far beyond the Krix system and have established footholds in Sagan, Cheyenne, Lunara, and Narayan systems. Both SysDef and the Vanguard are committed to ridding United Colony's space of these parasites. This is clearly no longer just a Freestar collective problem. So what this overall means is that the space and location of Starfield just isn't super clean. There's some bad stuff going on, and these organizations or factions are not in complete control. There's danger there. On one hand, there's this uneasy treaty between these two factions that who knows where that leads or if a full-on war breaks out, but then also they're literally being raided by pirates. And this is represented quite well by some of the new concept art shared during this new trailer. We have this hyper-futuristic looking city that just looks great, like a place you want to live, probably where the pinnacles of society do reside. Looks like it's well established, has a certain order to it, and it looks clean. But then conversely, we get a look at this overcrowded and dimly lit street. It almost gives you cyberpunk or Blade Runner vibes. So it seems like you kind of see the premiere side of Starfield's universe, but then also the grungy side where things aren't going as well, and perhaps even a bit worse still, we get two final pieces of locational concept art that just seem to be complete frontiers. One with crashed and decaying ships and just broken down structures all over. No signs of any human life outside of ourselves. But it looks like somebody tried to colonize this. Someone tried to settle this location and completely failed for some reason. But then conversely, just a completely foreign and uncolonized looking location. It actually kind of reminds me of that place we saw in the Outer Worlds 2 trailer, which is kind of interesting in its own right. But this place doesn't have that same degree of destruction, but just looks completely untouched. Like someone hasn't actually gone there and tried to establish anything yet. Perhaps that's what we're doing. And overall, it seems like this establishes the world of Starfield as we're visiting it. There's some issues. There's some shaky connections between people. Some places are doing great, some places aren't, and some places are doing horrible. With that said, one thing worth noting is that 50 light years, quote, 50 light years is pretty far. And to me, what this means is it's actually going to be the location that we're playing in. Some people have been speculating the 50 light year radius outside of Earth is the playable space, so you'll have a massive playable space. I don't think that's the case. I think the settled systems, this little system that is 50 light years away, is where we'll actually be playing. We'll have those planets, the asteroids, among other things to actually go to in that system, and there'll probably be a good decent chunk of them, but I don't think that 50 light year radius explorable area is realistic. And to me, this probably means that we're not going to Earth. We're going to be at this place 50 light years away from Earth, which, to put that into context, that would take thousands of years to get to in current times if we were using modern technology. Of course, this is 300 years in the future. They almost certainly have warp drives to get there, but I imagine the Earth, Moon, even places like Mars may be out of reach of us in Starfield. And one of the quotes in the video I think even backs this up a bit more, although perhaps we're reading too deeply into it, where they do say, set in a relatively small pocket of the Milky Way as far as where Starfield is set. They also do mention how we find ourselves at home in the Starfield. This makes me wonder if our spaceship that inevitably we're traveling around in kind of is our home, similar to what we had in the Outer Worlds. I think a decent amount's pointing to that, between the quotes describing it as a Han Solo simulator. Han Solo spent a lot of time on Millennium Falcon. It's not like he settled down and established this large-scale colony, but overall this just serves to get me incredibly hyped for this game. I know I'm probably looking too deeply into some things, but this world building, the lore they're sharing like this, just all sounds so good and interesting. It seems like this is a volatile world potentially, like we could enter into it on the cusp of something bad happening. And of course, whatever discoveries we make, whatever this big mystery we're trying to solve is, could ruffle some feathers or cause some extreme reactions from certain groups. And just as an aside, something completely unrelated that we learned during Tokyo Game Show, Starfield will actually have 150,000 lines of dialogue, which is a lot. So overall, that's Bethesda's latest tease on Starfield. Hopefully in a few more months or perhaps early next year, we'll get another little bite-sized thing like this and we could overanalyze it and read too deeply into things. With that said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. Hopefully you found it informative, and with that, I hope to see you all next time. Later.